Gotta be kidding me. You've actually got to be kidding me. I knew heading into this matchup against the Seattle Mariners, arguably the best starting staff in Major League Baseball, Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, who the Mets didn't even face, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, the list goes on and on. We all know how star-studded this pitching staff was for the Mariners, but if you would have told me heading into this matchup that the Mets would have dropped all 3 games, having one run in the entire series, I would have said, guys, I got a bridge to sell you. There's not a chance in heck it's going to happen. However, that was the case, everybody. I want to see your reactions. This is a official Mets fan therapy session presented by our great friends at BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook. Check them out today by clicking that link down below in the description. That way you too get 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. But folks, this is not your typical WardyNYM post-game session, nor is this a complete vent session. This is a therapy session. Because I know that we have Mets fans that are going to come in here and think the season is completely over. This is without question, the worst series loss the Mets have had this year. This is the most lifeless series the Mets have had this year. Were there multiple factors that went in line as to why this was a lifeless series for the Mets? Yes, absolutely. The road trip doesn't help. You have no rest the entire time, and you got another West Coast trip before the month wraps up. It gets difficult before it gets easier, folks. And for the Mets now, after getting curb stomped in this one by a final score of 12-1, they are now just 4 games above 500, are now still a half game out at least of a playoff spot, where the Atlanta Braves allowed the Rockies to rally all the way back with a 7th inning, 8th or 9th inning that we saw. The Braves have lost 6 of their past 7 games, but the Mets, when you put up a 4-6 road trip, this is what happens. They did not take advantage. They did anything but. Guys and gals, we have so much to get into in tonight's post-game therapy session. I'm not just going to rapid fire breaking down the ball game inning by inning as we always do. I really just want to react and further break down my key takeaways, not only from tonight's loss, but just this series as a whole, because this was nothing short of a lifeless one. A series for the Mets that you expected more from, and you simply did not get anything whatsoever that you were hoping for. For all my Mets fans out there that stayed up 10 p.m. Eastern Game 1, 9:40 p.m. Eastern Game 2, even tonight just felt like a drag because normally Sundays are day games for the Mets, and we have a Sunday night one there in ESPN. Thank goodness Trevor May was on the StatCast for ESPN, because that was actually enjoyable, and I'm never, and I mean never, going to enjoy the normal ESPN broadcast with how they do everything but talk about the game. But it didn't matter if you talked about the game in this one between the Mets and the Mariners, because if you were a Mets fan, again, if you're looking for anything, this game was over as soon as it started. Juan Diaz, thank you so much, great member and moderator, with a donation in the chat, says, I've said it before and I'll say it again, until the Mets do it, they need a manager that puts fire on these guys. I don't want to overreact because we are still in, but this is on the manager to fire these guys up. It's yes, you can argue a bit on Mendoza for sure, maybe on not getting them juiced up enough, but I think this really just falls in hand with the reality of how good this Mariners pitching staff is, and how the Mets simply could not handle what the Mariners are throwing their way here to cap off their 10-game road trip. A lot of factors did not go in the Mets' favor throughout this road trip, that is true, but even having said all factors, even having said the little sleep that they get, the time zone change, again, adding every excuse in the book, it still is, at the end of the day, an inexcusable series defeat, a series sweeping by the Seattle Mariners, everybody. So we're going to deep dive this one. I got a lot to say on this one. Oh my goodness, you literally could have won so much money if you had the opportunity to bet, not only just hammer the Mariners money line and spread in this one with our great friends at BetUS that you should have, but most importantly, all you guys needed to do if you had the opportunity, betting line was to have the Mets get a couple runners on base with 1 out and make sure they do absolutely nothing. In the third, in the fourth, pardon me, in the second, in the third, in the fifth, again, we saw this how many times tonight? This was a Mets team that yesterday had 4 hits. They couldn't even get to second base once. Tonight, they did get to second base. And you want to know how the Mets score their one and only run in this ball game? It's not because of hitting with runners to scoring position. It's because Jeff McNeil continues to be Jeff McBombs with his 6th home run in his past 22 games. That is why the Mets had any semblance of offense in this matchup that had little to nothing to do with everyone else in said lineup. Pete Alonso flailing, looking horrendous yet again. I know Luis Castillo is fantastic. I understand that Castillo is a dog himself. Kirby, that we see there, Gilbert, Wu, we see Miller. All of them are studs, but Castillo was painting those corners, touching 97, touching 98, making guys like Jose Iglesias, Alonso, and others look absolutely foolish. In this lineup the Mets had heading into this game, everybody, we saw together, and we're going to break it down together. Thank you all so much, everyone, first chiming in live at a replay. Smash that like and subscribe button as your first chime in, and let me know your initial reactions again to not only tonight's series sweep of a loss against the Mariners, but now the Mets again continuing to take zero advantage of the opportunities given them as of late. A team, again, finally with some expectations, sadly as a surprise a little, is not meeting up to them when they need to most. Alright guys, this was a Mets live heading into this game. I greatly appreciate all my members first chiming in. Thank you all so much for that. I greatly appreciate that. If you're watching this live on a replay, to all my new and recurring viewers, thank you guys so much as well. I'm not going to be rapid fire here with the shout outs tonight, guys. I really just have a lot to get off my chest, and I'm going to get into whatever comments you guys want to break down here for sure, along with donations. Never asked, always appreciate. Thank you guys in advance for those. But we see the Mets live here. Francisco Lindor again in leadoff. Then we saw WardyNYM there batting second. JDM batting third. Jesse Winker batting fourth. Alonso fifth. McNeil sixth. Iglesias seventh. Gamble eighth because Mark Vientos was a late game scratch, sadly, because of, yes, a sore ankle. Hopefully Vientos is back and ready to go by the time the Mets kick off their homestand, which begins Tuesday, because they have a much needed day off. And not only do the Mets need a day off, but so do us Mets fans. I think we all need a day off. We all need a break after this 10-game road trip, staying up late here the past couple days as well. If you're a new father like myself, you're getting very little sleep at the moment, so I'm absolutely shot, and I'm looking forward to hitting the hay tonight. But we saw with that Mets live outside of Gamble, again, JDM and Winker, you're liking that potential back-to-back. They have nothing to show for it whatsoever. Winker had a double there after the Mets were already down 11 runs, so that's a Mickey Mouse double. Don't care about that. Pete Alonso with 3 strikeouts on the day, the worst looking hitter out of the Mets' entire lineup, which is saying a lot given how WardyNYM has been basically batting 150 post All-Star break here. He has not been good whatsoever, yet Nimmo was still not the worst batter in this Mets lineup. It was the polar bear himself and Pete Alonso, everybody. I gotta ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is the frustration level, first and foremost, after a loss like this? That is what I want to feel in the room right now. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is everybody's frustration level here? Because this is a Mets team that, as we know, again, had themselves a rough start to the season. They had a brutal May. They had a fantastic June, a joyful June after a miserable May. They had themselves also, what we saw was a jovial July, or whatever you'd like to call it. And now as we get into August, it's been nothing but, you know, what I would say, what is a good word to go with August right now that's a negative? Let me think, you know, aging August? I don't know. This Mets team is aging not like a fine wine, but quite literally like spoiled milk. The way that this offense that was leading all Major League Baseball for basically 2 months this season, 1.5 to 2 this summer, now looking like, again, a shell of themselves right now. The first thing that you want to do is nitpick specific guys and say, okay, these are the reasons for our failure and we want them off our team. I understand the frustration. However, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say, oh, you know, Alonso, you haven't been showing up at all lately. You have. He has been providing offense. But in the context in which Alonso has been doing so, lately, not great. Horrendous this series like everyone else that we know. Rockies was awesome. Not complaining there. Again, first inning runs as well. Multiple home runs. I will take that. But the context that's against the Rockies is a further reason as to why we can only take that, honestly, you know, I don't even know, like, again, with a grain of salt. I think that's a rightful argument to make here. And then when we get on to the remainder of this lineup, JD, I love you, but JD Martinez has been pretty god-awful for the Mets for the past month now. I mean, truly, on the consistency front, JD has not been that guy. Jesse Winker, I'm very happy with the acquisition. I know he's not supposed to be our saving grace, so maybe that's the argument more to say, okay, Jesse Winker batting fourth, was that ideal? Should he have been batting cleanup for a guy that struggled to lift the ball for power since arriving in Queens? It's a small sample size. I know we're only 11 days removed from the trade deadline, but since those 11 days and since the Mets supposedly added and got better at the trade deadline, they have had their worst stretch of baseball pretty much all season long, and that is certainly not ideal. On a scale of 1 to 10, what are the odds of the Mets making playoffs right now in your humble opinion? Still just a half game out behind the Braves. Yes, even with a losing road trip on 4-6, the Mets are just a half game out of a playoff spot with the Oakland A's and the Miami Marlins next up at home. Yes, if the Mets go on a great run here against those lesser teams, they could be comfortably in a playoff spot by a game or a couple by the end of that stretch. Will it happen? Can it happen? And on top of it all, even if that does happen, how do they look then heading into the Diamondbacks and the Padres matchups back out west? Because again, if the Mets have a great next week, we're going to be happy, but I feel like it might be fool's gold, because that's kind of been the story at times with them this season. And will they even step up against the lesser opponents? They have done it this year. They struggled at times against the Halos in the road trip. Continue to spam your thoughts there, everybody in the live show. I appreciate you guys greatly. Now, before we get on to breaking down this ball game, we're going to rapid fire it inning by inning as we typically do, get into a little bit more on the numbers. Let's hear a quick word from our amazing video sponsor here on the channel at BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Shout out to BetUS as always, everybody. Make sure to click that link down below in the description if you haven't already. And thank you all so much in advance for doing so for all my respective sports bettors out there. And continue to smash the like and subscribe button if you haven't, everybody. It's inexcusable to put up such a no-show of an outing. And speaking of sit outing, everybody, as we get into this one, as the Mets, yes, lost this one by a final score of 12-1 against the same Mariners team who got Julio Rodriguez back in their lineup just to strike out at, 5 times in his first game back. Julio continues his very underwhelming season on the swing and miss his first game back. And even on a day where you could rightfully argue the best batter went healthy and went right in that lineup, well, Julio Rodriguez, many believe is an arguable MVP caliber player if he can really get back in the groove of things, was the worst batter in the lineup for the Mariners tonight. That is how you know how piss poor the Mets had it in this matchup, because we had the Mets go down in order with a JDM strikeout to end in the first against Luis Castillo. He's dotting those corners, touching 97, touching 98, making these batters look silly. God forbid, again, if there's any type of slider down and away against those righty sluggers, they're screwed before this thing even begins. Cal Riley got a single in the first. That's all she wrote. Cal Riley would go on to single-handedly just destroy the Mets in this one, too. McNeil gets on with a hit by pitch. Nothing else happens in the second. Jorge Polanco rips his 11th home run of the year that we see in the half inning later. Dominic Canzone gets his 6th double of the year, and that already is a frustrating start where the Mets are down 1-0. And it's a bad feeling in Mets land when you're down by one measly run, and you truly believe that the ball game is over. Honestly, that 1-run deficit felt the equivalent of being down 4, if not 5 runs, because of just how much this Mets team has been dragging their feet of anything whatsoever on the offensive end. Francisco Lindor doesn't care that no one else is performing. He's going to still continue to have a 500 series that we have here, batting-wise, against the Mariners. Yes, you can nitpick a lot of people in this series, but the one guy that I think you should nitpick the least is Francisco Lindor, rightfully so. He ripped his 29th double of the year, folks. Again, a great year for extra base hitting once again for Lindor. Nimmo gets on with a walk, and this begins the frustration for the Mets here. They're first in the top of the third here. 2 on, 1 out. JDM and Winker go down back-to-back. We see Randy Rosarena gets on with a walk. Then thankfully he's caught stealing after that. Cal Riley gets on with a walk. Second time today he's on base. Nothing happens. The Mets go down in order because they are struck out by Luis Castillo. The side is struck out. Alonso looks stupid. McNeil looks stupid. Jose Iglesias, oh my God, I love you, Jose, but oh my God, was that a bad at-bat. He got sorted up, and again, if you're going to get sorted up, this is the one rotation that's likely going to do it to you more often than not. Doesn't change the fact that I have 1 run in 3 games. It's not going to get it done, guys. It just is not going to get it done. Thank God this team has an off day tomorrow. Holy guacamole, guys. I really want to scream my head off. I do. This is a therapy session. This is a safe space. If you guys are upset, if you're angry, however you're feeling, rip it in the comments in the live show. Drop them in the comments down below, spamming them as well. I am not going to say anything against any of you guys, no matter how much you love or hate the team right now. Let's see. Okay, we see the Mets again. have nothing happen for the Mariners in the bottom of the fourth. 1, 2, 3. In the fifth, we see Terrence get on with a single. Lindor on with a single. Oh, another inning where the Mets get on back-to-back with 1 out. Surely they're going to produce some offense. And then a line drive and a JDM flyout does it. Then we see Canzone hits with a ground rule double, his 7th of the year that we see there. Then it becomes 2-0 thanks to Randy Arozarena somehow, someway getting the second run of the day. This being a ground ball single that looked like one of the most nonchalant plays by Francisco Lindor. They gave Randy the single here because I guess of the tough play, maybe the angle, but Lindor lets the ball slip out of his hand entirely as he's about going with the transition of the throw. Lindor, who has been elite plenty. I know he has like 11 errors this year, which already ties last season. He wasn't accounted for an error there, but that's a play that Lindor always has. And of course, the one time Randy has a little infield chopper that somehow is the difference maker to allow that third base runner to score. It is 2-0 Mariners. Francisco Lindor has the offense, but did not have the defensive prowess there. The Mets are down already by a pair, and it gets worse because literally first pitch later there to Cal Riley. He rips his 25th home run of the year. It's 4-0 Mariners, and Riley would not be done. Cal, who's having a dominant year as one of the best backstops in Major League Baseball, so slept on because he doesn't usually hit for high average, but he slugs, and he slugs the way that Alvarez slugs when Alvy is right and not having shoulder problems or ailments throughout the season. Mets are down 4-0, folks, and as we continue on with the ball game, Jeff McNeil finally snaps the 23-plus innings of no runs for the New York Metropolitans as he rips his 11th home run to right. That makes it a 3-run ball game. Guys, we're just down by 3 runs. Surely the Mets are going to come back into this. Surely the Mets have a chance to pounce and actually, get something going here. Surely we would be wrong. That is, in fact, the truth. Because as we break down more of this ball game, again, the Mets lose this one by a final score of 12-1. We see here Jorge Polanco getting on then with a double. Ryan Stanek coming in to face the former team, the one that traded him just a month ago. They understood why they trade him, and now us Mets fans have a better understanding as to why as well. We all knew Stanek had piss poor numbers in his final month with the Mariners, but he heads back to Seattle, back home there, at least where he spent the first half of the season, and was far from comfortable. Stanek, again, was quite literally a wild thing, and that sucked to see. That was really a gut punch. I was hoping to see Stanek be a flame-throwing, dominant right-hander there against Seattle. Mind you, this is the Seattle Mariners who don't have a good lineup. They haven't all season long, but all it takes is the Mets to put up 12 runs, because of course it is. Polanco gets his 7th double of the year. Luke Raley gets on with a walk. Then, of course, a wild pitch allows both runners again in scoring position. You walk Josh Rojas because, of course, you do. And then you see a single by Leo Rivas, who continues to single-handedly kill the Mets in this series for a guy that had a 180 batting average heading into this matchup. Again, it's 5-1 already, Mariners. Oh, yeah, let's add insult to injury. Let's make it 7-1. And the worst part of it all, Adam Ottavino coming in now for Ryan Stanek. Mind you, with runners on base, Adam, who was just a day removed from throwing like 44 pitches. Ah, yes, this makes so much sense. Let's bring in Adam Ottavino. I swear, it's like the Mets purposely threw Adam out there again because they know that they just want him out of this bullpen. Because that is quite literally what happened. It wouldn't be Adam's fault at first, however, because Jeff McNeil would have a tough throw that he botches to Alonso. The error would go there to McNeil. Some people were saying that it should have been charged to Alonso. I thought it was more so McNeil on the throw there. I'm curious how you guys feel in the show about that, though. Let me know, everybody. But again, Ryan Stanek couldn't get out of his own mess. It's 7-1 now, Mariners. After the Mets just got their first run, they're only down by 3, and an inning or so later, it's a complete flip-flop of a ball game. The offense breaks out, but it breaks out in the Mariners fashion here, and then Cal Riley pisses on a 3-run shot, his 26th home run of the year. It is 10-1 Mariners, and of course, Julio Rodriguez, J-Rod strikes out to end the inning there. Okay, Adam Ottavino, please enlighten me on what baseball savant numbers are going to throw David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza's way again to sway why you need to be in this bullpen, because all I see is an Adam Ottavino that was overworked over the past couple days, yes, but it goes in hand because of the Mets' current bullpen options, one, and knowing that I think that they're going to cut ties with the guy. Sean Reed-Foley is going to be back in the next couple of days. He has one more rehab outing, at least there at Syracuse, that we're going to see. It may have happened today. I will double check for you guys. It will happen soon. And we know Daniel Nunez will be back, even potentially with the rosters expanding. We'll see if the Mets utilize that spot or not. We talked about Adam Ottavino in our video earlier today, why it feels like now a foregone conclusion that he will be out of here. It's not a matter of if, but when. The latest example of exactly why Adam Ottavino has no business being in this Mets bullpen. Ben Gamble gets on with a single. Of course, Luis Torrens grounds into a double play. Then we see Rayleigh get on with a walk for Danny Young. Josh Rojas with a single. Then we see Leo Rivas with a walk, and his bases loaded for Danny Young as he walks in the 11th run of the day, thanks to Victor Robles, who had a victory lap like the schmuck that he is. It becomes 12-1 then because Randy Rosarena got hit by the pitch. Danny Young, the Mets' lone southpaw option in this bullpen, was absolutely horrendous in the inning. He might as well call himself Adam Ottavino and Ryan Stanek because there was no difference between the three, all of which were equally bad, all of which are ones that you could argue that you maybe don't even want the bullpen, depending on the day, depending on the health statuses of guys, depending on the configuration. Danny Young has been pretty solid over his past number of outings. I'm not going to, hang my head much with him here. The offense is the reason why the Mets lost each and every one of these games, but the bullpen, again, made this so much worse. Again, when the Mets thought they had some type of momentum, all it took was what we saw there with Ryan Stanek and others. Mind you, this is a Luis Severino who I haven't talked about once yet, who won 5 innings of 6 hit. You guys can see it right now. 5 innings of 6 hit, 4 earned run ball, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. Sevy was far from the problem. Was he dominant? No, but he had solid swing and miss today. He was commanding the zone with the high fastball, touching 97, touching 98. He looked strong. Wasn't able to give the Mets length, however. Severino has yet to give the Mets a start beyond 5 innings post-trade deadline. That is something to make note of for Severino, who, mind you, didn't go any start less than 5 heading into the trade deadline. His first start afterwards was 3, then it was 5, and now it's 5 again. For Severino, again, right off the riff here, his rating, I'm going to give him probably in this outing a 5 out of 10, a 4.5, a 5 out of 10. Great with the strikeouts. Again, just got left out, hung out to dry a little bit by this Mets offense, in which, again, as soon as they were down by a run or two, you felt like this game was truly over, because it was. All you need was 2 runs to beat the Mets in this ball game. But for the Seattle Mariners, they said, oh, what? I'm sorry, I thought you said 12. What, we need just 2? Let's just get 12, because of course we will. JD Martinez gets on with a walk that we see in the 8th. Jesse Winker gets on with a double. Pete Alonso, again, with runners of scoring position, folks. We got 2 runners of scoring position for Winker, JDM, 1 out. Pete Alonso, we are already losing 12-1, and Pete Alonso still strikes out silly by Voth, and that does it. We then get to the next inning or so. We see for the Mets, who was pitching, I think it was still Danny Young, or no, it was Phil Maton. Phil Maton was the only Mets reliever that was competent, that didn't allow a run today. Thank you, Phil. We appreciate that. 1.1 scoreless innings and a pair of strikeouts there for Maton. But the Mets, again, they go down. Ben Gamble gets a walk, and that does it there, folks, as they lose this one by a final score of 12-1. And as we're breaking down this ball game, folks, if you're watching live on our replay, happy to have you all in here. As you see, again, on the wild card standings, the Atlanta Braves, who somehow, some way lost their ball game today by a final score of, what was it, 9-8? Let me actually double check right now. A ridiculous outing in Coors there between the Rockies and the Braves, which the Rockies just edged that one out. And even as they just edged that one out, again, the Mets have nothing to show for it as a response. Yes, a 7-run 8th inning for the Colorado Rockies, with 44-75 Rockies, and yet the Mets still sit here a half game back because they cannot pounce at all on the opportunities given to them. 0-0-0. Brutal stuff here for the Mets, folks. And again, as we continue to break down this ball game, let's get into it on the hitting side. Because again, you get no hits, you get no hits, you get no hits, you get no hits. Just a lot of the same nonsense that we saw from the Mets' lack of offensive ability in this one. This is how the lineup ended in today's game, folks. A rapid fire on the offense. Lindor 2 for 4 with a double, a 260 average, a 790 OPS. Lindor batting 260 for the first time this season, I believe. Brandon Nimmo 0 for 3 with a walk, a 230 average, 750 OPS. Tyrone Taylor 0 for 1, pinch hitting, 238, 682. JD Martinez 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout, a 257 average, a 779 OPS. JD Martinez has been horrendous the past month, however, though, outside of his grand slam that we saw the past road trip. Again, regardless, not a lot there for JDM. Jesse Winker 1 for 4 with a double. Had a big 3-hit game that we saw, but nothing to show for it against the Mariners, his former club, and a pair of strikeouts, a 259 average, and a 780 OPS. Pete Alonso 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts on the day for Pete. Thanks for nothing. A 240 average, a 789 OPS. Jeff McNeil 1 for 3 with the run scored, with the home run, a 239 average, a 677 OPS. Thank you, Jeff, for making it not be history for the Mets for the wrong reasons, where they would go 3 consecutive games games without scoring a run and this amount of innings in doing so. Thank goodness for Jeff McNeil. And who would have said that a couple months ago, right? Jose Iglesias over 4, a 324 average at 849 OPS. Ben Gamble 1 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout at 250 average at 723 OPS. Gamble getting the late start there in the corner outfield and shifting to Jose Iglesias from second to third as Mark Vientos has a sore ankle and was not able to start this one in time. Luis Torrens 1 for 4, the former Seattle Mariner who knows this park well, with a pair of strikeouts, a 277 average and a 788 OPS. Torrens is now finally down below at 800 OPS this season, and sadly I'm sure he's going to continue to just go down because that's what happens when you're a backup catcher. But that's everything on the offensive end, everybody. Can I get Dave Kaneman on the show? Easier said than done, Marcus, but again, it's definitely an interesting one, right? Why recap a game like this? Seriously painful? Because again, no matter how good or no matter how bad the Mets are, we are not going to miss anything here on the WardyNYM platform. That is why. Even when the Mets decided not to show up, your guy Wardy's always going to be here to break down ball games. That 9-game stretch from the Mets right there is exactly why them going 4-6 over this past road trip is inexcusable. Let's just say we do make the playoffs. You don't think we're going to get completely embarrassed once again? It always seems inevitable. The only way it would feel different is if the Mets ride into playoffs with momentum, which they absolutely can. They didn't do it in 2022. They were dragging their feet in 2022. Yes, they got the 101 wins against the Nationals. They secured the playoffs against the Brewers in Milwaukee, but that was all fluff when they were not really playing their best baseball. The Mets need to be on a roll to a degree, I'd argue, heading into postseason play, just something to help have momentum on their side, so that way that they aren't dragging their feet and looking lifeless and looking like a one and done in a wild card matchup. But yeah, this 9-game road fest is absolutely ridiculous for the Mets. I'm telling you right now, the Mets have an above 500 record in this 9-game stretch, starting against the Orioles on the 19th to the Padres on the 25th. If they have above 500, to the 30th, above 500 over that 9-game stretch, 3 against Orioles, 4 against Padres, 3 against, I'm an idiot, 10-game, another 10-game stretch. Even worse, we're actually screwed. Actually screwed, seriously. Like, I love this team, and I pray that they prove me wrong. But again, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out the 3 against the Orioles, 4 against Padres, 3 against the Diamondbacks could be the nail in the coffin. But if the Mets somehow, some way can go 6-4 at least over that road trip, somehow, some way, if they can make that happen, then I have a confidence level in this team like I haven't had this year. And I mean that. And I mean that. That is their biggest test this season. Biggest test. That's a bigger test than your 7 games against the Phillies, and then you got the Braves and the Brewers, because those are big matchups for sure. But we don't know how the Phillies, the Braves, and the Brewers are going to be playing baseball by the time we match up with them. Unless things drastically change over the next week, the Orioles, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks are likely going to be rolling still red hot. This will make or break them. So again, let's just pray. Let's hope. Again, hope for the best. This Mets team can be competent throughout this stretch. Let's see. Laugh my ass off 6-4. Yeah, again, just because I want them to be 6-4 doesn't mean that they will be 6-4. Rooting for Juan Soto. Soto come the offseason is something that we will talk about as consistent as we possibly can without it being too burnout. But all right, guys, I want to know any final remarks you got for me, and then I'm probably going to wrap this one because this is just an absolute gut punch of a series loss. Being swept like this is nothing short of embarrassing. And honestly, I can go out of my way and we can break down specific numbers, but I'm not going to do all of that. There are only select numbers that I would like to showcase with you all, and they are the following here, everybody. And mind you, I will bear this in mind. This does have a bit to do with, obviously, their pitching matchups the past 3 days. But let's just take a look briefly at where the Mets stand in the offensive rankings over now their past. I mean, not even just since trade deadline, but we can just look at, let's just look at past trade deadline. Let's just look at the past 11 days for this team. Let's do that. And something that isn't getting talked about nearly enough is that Mets starters have not been going deep for them. But again, we don't talk about it much right now because the offense has not been there whatsoever. Let's also take into account a 5-inning outing from Sevy. Quintana gave up 5 when, again, he didn't have nearly as bad of an outing as it looked, sadly. And then we also saw there in Shamanai only going 3 for the first time this season. So again, everything that could have basically went wrong this series for the Mets went wrong, and that's why it is easily, in my opinion, the worst series loss of the year. But if we take a look now at the Mets offensive statistics, let's go now starting, let's go since, August 1st. Let's go since August 1st and see where they currently rank per Fangraphs. Now, I don't know that if this is updated as of today, folks, so give me 1 second, and of course, I clicked the wrong thing here. And let's get into this, everybody, in just one moment, making sure that this properly loads on my end, and then I will relay you all the information. Okay, so since August 1st of this season, the Mets off. Holy shit. There you go. There you go, folks. And mind you, I'm not even sure. I am not even sure if this is with today's game counting or not. The Mets have the 22nd ranked offense in Major League Baseball per Fangraphs since post-trade deadline. So that's not good. Not good at all. And to add some context, a 251 batting average, a 305 on base percentage, and a 368 slug. The slugging, the lack of power has really hurt the Mets. A 94 WRC plus, 6% below average on the offensive ranking there. For the Mets, they're on the WRC plus range. Not ideal for a team trying to make playoffs. Just for context, below the Mets throughout this stretch, there are currently 0 teams in playoff position outside of, funny enough, the Seattle Mariners. The Mariners currently ranked 26th in their offensive ranking, 26th in offense over their past basically almost 2 weeks. They outscored the Mets 20-1 or 22-1, one of the two in this one. Just disgusting. Let's see up in the chat here, folks, before I wrap this one up. What you got for me? Let's see in here. Wardy, who do you pin it on the lack of offensive adjustments? It's a combination of Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes being useless, one, or Danny Barnes, whichever one his name is, because I always get them flip-flop. And this offense not stepping up when we need them to. Again, this is a collective problem with their streaks. But I think there's something to be said about how much the Mets and guys like Pete Alonso have pressed this season especially. But I really do think it falls back on the hitting coaches to a degree and just the veterans. Again, this is a good mix of veteran leadership with youth in this lineup. But having said that, this Mets team is still not playing nearly to the caliber that you'd hope. And guys in JD Martinez, who have been clubhouse leaders all season long in a lot of ways, have not been stepping up. JD Martinez in particular, that I actually will highlight with you all. And I'm gonna throw a couple more numbers at you, and then we're gonna get out of here because I do want to make sure that this is acknowledged. JD Martinez stats since. Let's do JD Martinez's stats since the All-Star break. So let's do that. So since the All-Star break, so going back to July 19th. And again, probably doesn't include today's game. Let's see. JD Martinez since July 19th, everybody. Buckle up for this. A 237 average, just 18 hits, 2 home runs, 15 RBIs, 6 runs scored in 21 games. So yes, the 15 RBIs in 21 games doesn't look horrendous, but the lack of power is what's glaring there for JDM, who again, 2 home runs over that stretch, not ideal for the Mets here. Certainly would like more considering it's now been, 3 weeks at least of JDM only having 2 home run baseball. Just a lot of frustrating games throughout this stretch for sure. And again, I love JD Martinez, I really do. But he's now causing a net negative issue for the Mets lately in the DH position. And not only JD Martinez, let's look at Brandon Nimmo. Because Brandon Nimmo, post-All-Star break, has been god-awful, sadly. And he's getting absolutely attacked by some people online. And his wife is out defending him, rightfully so. Just for fans going out of their way is ridiculous. Stats for 2 weeks, really? Yes. Okay, so let's get into this. Stats for 2 weeks, really. Are they important? They're absolutely important. The reason why stats over a 2 week span are important are given the context of what we're breaking down now. Every game means so much for the Mets in their wildcard race at the moment. Teams are rolling. Teams bought big on the trade deadline. Every game matters. So yes, a 2 week stretch, which might not have meant much all that to you a couple months ago, means a lot more right now, at least to the average fan, knowing how much each game matters and how much, again, just dropping, say, 4 out of your dropping your past 10 games in which you lost 6 out of your last 10 can be a nail in the coffin for you if it isn't for the Braves, the Pirates, the Giants, the Pirates, the Giants as well, doing everything in their power to keep the Mets in this one right now. Brandon Nimmo, since July 19th, is batting 152 with 12 hits, 3 RBIs, 6 runs scored in 21 games. Holy shit, Brandon, just 3 RBIs. Throughout that stretch, I knew it was bad, but I didn't think it was that bad on the RBI front. My goodness. We're acting like the All-Star game doesn't affect many hitters. No, we're not. I don't know why you think that either. We all know that the All-Star game affects many hitters. But just because it affects many hitters doesn't mean that we should be complacent and be like, okay, we're happy about that. We're allowed to acknowledge these things. Like, why did, like, I'm sorry. I'm not understanding what you're putting down there. And last but not least, let's look at Mark Vientos' offensive numbers since the span, because I'm curious about that as well. I know Alvarez has labored with the injury as well, but Vientos, since July 19th, is batting just .214, 15 hits, 5 home runs, 11 RBIs. That power has still been the difference for Vientos, and that's why it hasn't stuck out too bad when he's went through his ruts where he went like 0 for 10 and stuff like that. And last but not least, the final guy that I will check right now is going to be Mr. Francisco Alvarez. Mind you, Alvarez with limited playing time with the shoulder injury at times, and again, still getting the groove of things. A 179 average, 10 hits, a homer, 4 RBIs, 3 runs scored in 16 games since July 19th of this season. So that is all the latest there on this one, folks. A very frustrating series sweep of a defeat there against, yes, that being, and sadly, what we have, the Seattle Mariners. And now the Mets look to make sure that they don't free fall anything lower than 4 games below, not below, but above 500 that they currently find themselves at. Can the Mets climb themselves back? Will they? We will find out, folks. But like the Mets, I too need a big off day tomorrow, so I'm going to go enjoy myself. Tune out tomorrow. Again, there might be content out. Be on the lookout. If not, no worries. We'll be back at it with our consistent coverage on not only post-game coverage, but daily updates for the most part on all the latest Mets land, as we're going to have some key updates on Marte, on Sean Reed-Foley, and others there in the coming days. Nothing tomorrow on the minor league level because no minor league games are played on Mondays. But beyond that, Tuesday for the remainder of the week, we will have a lot of coverage for each and every one of you. Thank you all so much for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it, folks. Shout out to Jose for being such a stupid pain in the ass in the chat right now. I don't know why, so he gets an easy block for that one. And that is going to do it for the live show, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. The Mets have a tough one. Hopefully, fingers crossed that they can rebound from here. And I will see you all in our next post-game or individual video segment.